Was wondering why it's so hot in here. The company I work for has two sites with in-house data centers. One site has the data center in the back of the IT office with a big glass wall with the server racks visible lets a bit of noise through, but when rebooting something you can hear that fans start spinning 100%. I was working from the other site, saw a temperature sensor going up in our monitoring tool. Sometimes it just spikes a bit, nothing to worrying about, decided to ignore it for a bit. Checked the sensor again, it went from to 6C to for 5C, that can't be good. I asked in our IT team's channel, who was present at the site. Got a response, called the colleague immediately. I heard the servers whining on the background. Asked him to check the air conditioning units, indeed 45C. Got a response back. I was wondering why it was so hot in the office, clearly did not notice the servers whining. Called my IT manager to ask who was the facilities employee on the specific site, called that person and got the response, yeah, don't worrying, there is air conditioning maintenance on the roof but they are on lunch break. Right now they left the roof units off while on lunch break. Stories number 2. I just ended a 1-year online friendship. We met in Discord 1 year ago and kept talking every day. She was the funniest and smartest woman I've ever met, and suddenly I started to like her. And I felt I liked her too, so I decided to call her and tell her everything, and she liked me too. But then we said, okay, then what's next? We had a long discussion and we decided that it's not possible. We still underage and we are too far. And we don't even got a job, so we decided to stop talking because it only would damage us more. It's been hard. And it just was 2 days ago. I still miss her with everything. Stories number 3. I know my husband cheated on me, but I haven't confronted him. I've been married to my husband for 7 years and we've built a life together that I thought was solid. A few months ago I started noticing some changes in his behavior. He became more secretive with his phone, started working late more often, and seemed emotionally distant. One night, when he was asleep, I looked through his phone and found messages between him and another woman. The texts were flirtatious and detailed plans to meet up. My heart sank and I felt a wave of betrayal and hurt, despite knowing I haven't confronted him about it. I'm scared of what he'll say and the potential end of our marriage. Part of me hopes it was just a one-time lapse in judgment, but another part of me can't stop replaying those messages in my head. Every day I put on a brave face and pretend everything is okay, but inside, I'm falling apart. I know I need to talk to him. That the fear of shattering our life together is paralyzing. I just needed to get this off my chest because keeping it to myself is becoming unbearable. Stories number 4. A guy messaged me on Reddit 2 years ago. I'm still in love, but we both live too far away and it hurts. I haven't had a boyfriend since 2013, since my boyfriend died. It took a long while to feel like I wanted a partner again, and when I did, it came on strong. I made a throwaway account a little over 2 years ago saying that I had a rather unconventional type. I'm a thin as *schwal nerdy woman who is into very fat nerds. Shortly after I made that post, within 10 minutes he messaged me saying, hi, I'm an obese nerd. At first he seemed like he was joking, like I wouldn't find him attractive, but when he showed what he looked like, it was love at first sight. He looked angelic, literally the cuttest man I've ever seen in my life. He actually said I was pretty. I know that doesn't seem like a lot, but as a woman with a genetic condition that happens to make me look a little bit different from others, and got a lot of flack for it before it caused me to stop hating how I look. He lovingly compared me to an owl, and I did the same thing in return by lovingly comparing him to a hamster. Because he had these soft chubby cheeks, he said he was around 340 pounds and he had these big black prominent and shiny looking eyes like an adorable little hamster. He'd send me photos of him with his arms outstretched as if to hug me, telling me to imagine him hugging me. He told me he wants to carry me over his shoulder back home. I found this all very endearing and I enjoy it. If I was AFK for a few minutes, he'd still write messages saying, I haven't scared you off half. As an *schwal, I experience attraction differently from the heteronormative standard. I'm attracted to cuteness, specifically in the form of nerdiness and fatness. I find fatness cute because it's like a big soft teddy bear that would be so cuddly, and I find nerdiness attractive because I find it adorable. The more nerd stereotypes are hit, the better. He even has an adorable little lisp as he talks, and I love to hear his voice. He said he hates how his face looks and no woman would ever truly love him, but I told him I find him attractive, and if it wasn't for the distance I'd totally ask him out. A few months ago I bit the bullet and straight up asked him if he'd be interested in meeting up in person, and he said he thinks we're fine as we are now, since traveling seems like a lot to him right now, and it's not likely in the future since he's not a fan of traveling in general. I cannot fly due to a physical condition. We both live on opposite sides of the world across the ocean. He's about to start working remotely. He just graduated college with a computer science degree, and I feel reluctant to try and search for another guy since I feel like I'd be betraying him. No other guy I've Scene was love at first sight like that, and most people don't even believe me when I tell them what my type is. He doesn't have much of an online presence, so him messaging me honestly seems like it was some sort of miracle. He looked exactly like how I pictured my dream guy in my mind. We're still friends and chat on Discord. I'll even have dreams where we're together, and those dreams always seem to be set some years into the future. I'm kind of lost. I don't get out much because I have CFS, and I also don't work. I am using imperial measurements for convenience purposes, as much of Reddit's user base appears to be US based, and I've had people online get confused at my usage of metric units in the past. Stories number 5. What I wish I was strong enough to send. Dear Luke, this is never how I thought our future would go. I thought one day we would be married and have a big house with children. There was no doubt ever, and still isn't, that you were the love of my life, but I have come to terms with the fact I'm not good enough to be yours. I looked forward to spending every day of my future with you, but I think we both know you have fallen out of love with me quite a while ago. Maybe you didn't want to hurt me, or maybe you just didn't want to admit it yet. I am not sure, but what I do know is that even though you may not love me, I will always be so truly in love with you. You are the person I want to run to every time something good, bad, funny, or sad happens, not because I needed your support, because I wanted to share my all with you. I can understand why you think I am too much. I'm not sure what I did exactly, or why you fell out of love with me. God, I wish I knew though, because I would turn back time if it meant I was still good enough for you. I'm sorry I wasn't, and that my faults started to outweigh anything left that is good about me. But I'm so grateful for the time, memories, and love we shared across these 5 years. We'll never forget them. They were some of the happiest days of my life. I will miss them and you so much. Luke, you are smart, handsome, kind, caring, and you can be oh so loving. One day, when you find the girl who is your love of your life, they will be the luckiest girl in the world. I know, because that used to be me with you in my corner. I knew I believed I could do anything because I had my biggest supporter showing me love all the way. Walking away from us will be the hardest thing I will ever have to do. I have never felt so much physical pain. I will always be in love with you, Luke. Please look after my dog. Remind her that her mama loves her so much. And I will miss her so much. It hurts. I will think of you both every single day I shall live. Stories number 6. How do you deal with people who you don't know for sure are lying, but you feel like they are just to get something from you? So there's this coworker who likes working at a certain time period, but the bosses don't give her that time slot for each day. So she tries to swap shifts with people who have that time slot on those days. Everyone's schedule is visible, so that's how she knows who has what. BTW. I've seen her tell someone else some excuse that she needs to work a certain time because she has a doctor's appointment to go to. She usually will ask me to swap without an excuse, but yesterday she approached me at work and told me she has to take her mom or grandma to get some surgery or something. Like, I said yes to swapping. Now of course maybe she really does have something to do, like take her mom to surgery. If I'm misjudging her, then I'm sorry. It's entirely possible. I guess I just feel sketchy. Stories number 7. I confessed I cheated. Throwaway account. This is going to be a long one. TLDR. In the end, years ago, and when I was back to my early 20s, I started working on my first serious adult job. Lucky enough, my best friend Susan also worked there. Around the same time, I started hooking up with this guy. Let's call him Stuart. It was the beginning of a very toxic relationship that lasted way too long, for years. The guy was a compulsive liar and a cheater. The first knew that early on. I still am not sure why I stayed. No reason is good enough. My guess is that in the beginning I kind of enjoyed it, all the drama, and thought I would get over it soon. It wouldn't though, so eventually I decided to start going to therapy, which helped me move on. I wasn't the best version of myself in that relationship either. In retrospect, we both gave each other quite a hard time. I think I mistook the constant stress and anxiety of what's going to come next as intense and sincere romantic feelings. The knot in my stomach was butterflies. Cringe. Knowing that he was cheating on me, he would sneak out the house the weirdest hours. And while he thought I was sleeping and go meet the occasional side chick, and always denying it, I concluded that he didn't deserve my honesty, nor my loyalty, so if there ever was a chance for a hookup with anyone cute, I wouldn't cross it out either. However, I wouldn't rush anything. I didn't find it in myself to go so low as to *CK random people, just to get back at him. There was this one guy at work I fancied, let's call him Den. He was also kind of flirty, but it never seemed to progress. A year later, Den invited me to a Christmas party. I was determined to let things slide if it went that way, and it did. It was pretty late. I was super drunk and we started making out. He suggested we go to his place and we did. We did some oral stuff for a while. He couldn't get it up and I left early in the morning, even though he insisted I stay and hang out. Den and I kind of drifted apart for a couple of years after that. And I didn't tell Stuart about it. I figured Stuart did his dirty things without minding to cover it, but I wouldn't use this instance as petty revenge. We still work together with Dan, and after 2 years of being friendly and professional, and never talking about what happened, we were messaging each other about work. We had a project to do together. He started **xting and I responded. I felt flattered, and I remember I was kind of disappointed that the first **x encounter didn't go well. The **xting thing kept going on and off for a whole year. I would mention every now and then that we could meet instead of just texting, but he would brush it off and continue with the messages. I got tired of it at some point and cut it out. I was still with Stuart this whole time, still dealing with the same SHT as before. At the end of that year, Dan quit the office and left abroad. My friend Susan and I were relocated to the same floor, and in a tiny office room there was still some space. So they moved another woman who was close to my friend, but we weren't acquainted. The three of us hit it off and we were having a good time at work. I came to like the woman, let's call her Alice, a lot. We would talk about relationships, family, clothes, work and whatnot, and I always suggested going out after work for drinks or whatever. I noticed that Alice was quite cryptic about her current relationship. When she was so open about the previous ones, she always avoided talking about current relationship status and would change the subject. Dan returned to town and started texting me, initiating **xting. But I asked him to stop. He made some passive-aggressive comments about how could I be into it last year and suddenly wanting to stop, but he let go eventually. At that point, I started suspecting that him and Alice might have been a thing after some weird interactions between them. When all of us still worked together, coincidentally, they also went to the same place for holiday that summer. I shared my thoughts with Susan and she said that might be the case. Alice had been in a troubled relationship with the same guy for the past few years, but she never disclosed who he was. I was too embarrassed to ask Alice myself. If my guess was wrong, I would have admitted to be fooling around with a colleague while I was in a relationship. If my guess was right, I would have been the other person in her relationship. I figured it wasn't my business anyway, and that it's better to let sleeping dogs lie. However, Alice would be more distressed as days went by. At some point, the three of us, myself, Susan, and Alice, went for drinks after work. Susan left the table to take a phone call, and me and Alice were talking casually. I told her she looks a bit off and asked what's wrong. She did confide that she was in an on-off relationship with a guy quite younger than her that she had been trying to break up, but he would manipulate her emotionally into staying together. While she didn't call him by his name this time either, her description matched Don's character along with some other bad traits I wasn't aware of. Again, I was conflicted about whether I should mention something, but again, they are adults and it's none of my business. She has a good grasp of reality. She knows she has to get out, but then she said that his substance abuse never subsided since day when he was still acting like a teenager while she was in her 40s and thinking about having a kid. He would try to convince her to have a kid together, but as she told me, she had this feeling that if she agreed, she would end up taking care of a kid on her own. That last part **ked me up completely. For the next days, I kept thinking that I must say something. She portrayed this guy being bad and manipulative, that's one thing, but having a baby with someone only to find out afterwards that they are a lying, that's every woman's nightmare. Again, I shared my thoughts with Susan since she was a common friend of both myself and Alice. I told her I felt obliged to tell Alice of my past interaction with Dan. Susan agreed with my point of view but said that since Alice wouldn't share the guy's name, it was not my responsibility to do so. Regardless, I decided to tell her. She came to the office one day visibly frustrated. I asked her what was wrong and she told me she had broken up yet again. I told her that it was for the better and she should keep it that way. I tried to brace myself to admit I'm the shittiest person ever, and I went up to her and told her I have something to tell her and I am very, very sorry. I said that a few years ago I had a one-night stand with a former colleague, and after that we started **xting for around a year, and I suspect that this former colleague was the same guy she was talking to me about. She asked me about the guy's name. I said it's Dan. I couldn't have anticipated her reaction. She was so composed and graceful, it made me feel even worse. She stood up and hugged me. She thanked me for telling her, as this had always been his ground for why she should stay and they be together, his feelings and loyalty to their relationship, which now turned out to be a lie. She told me that she will be honest with him about it. She will let him know of what I told her I didn't want to. I very selfishly didn't want to be more involved in this, but I realized that since I let the words out, what was going to happen was no longer up to me. The same day I went home and told Stuart about it. Funny enough, that was the reason we eventually broke up, and he straight up went ahead and hit on one of his friend's girlfriend. That put aside the next months, or hell, I have to admit I was scared of Dan. Alice share more information about their relationship. Turns out he was not just emotionally and verbally abusive. I blocked him everywhere, but then his friends started messaging and harassing me, asking why did I show Alice my private conversations with Dan and ruin their relationship. I found it interesting how they instantly figured out I showed Alice the messages we had shared even though I hadn't, and Alice never mentioned seeing anything. I would always delete the messages Dan and I exchanged, so there was not much to show except for his final attempts at I rejected. And even if I hadn't deleted the rest, I felt so embarrassed and humiliated to admit those things to her, let alone show her the conversations. She never asked to see anything either. She told me that the timeline I gave her, they were together the whole time, matched some periods, that they were arguing and things were not going well, but even if she hadn't initially believed me, Don's reaction when she told him was proof enough. He was outraged. He was spamming her with calls 24/7. He told her that she shouldn't believe me, and I am obsessed with him and have been pursuing him this whole time. Since Alice wouldn't change her mind, his narrative would change by the day, saying that she shouldn't take it that hard as we only exchanged messages and didn't actually have sex. So according to him, it was pretty much like masturbating to porn. He implied he was going to off himself. He told her that no one would take her but him, as she was so self-centered. He finally threatened that he could have me fired, as he was friends with the management, unless Alice met with him to talk, which she did. She told me all this afterwards. She told me that he finally behaved during their conversation. He still didn't see texting as actual cheating, and he couldn't believe Alice chose to believe me over him. Well, this was quite a character development experience for me, and I know it could have gone so much worse if Alice wasn't the person she is. It still remains one of the worst moments of my life. For months I was scared that I was going to lose my job over this. I was receiving anonymous phone calls at 5 a.m. I witnessed Alice grow distant. It was only natural and had to listen to the latest update of Dawn's deranged comments. She also quit the office for months later, and that was the end of it. A year after the whole thing happened, I met with a friend Dan and I had in common. He told me he stopped talking with Dan after what happened. Even though he didn't know my side of the story, he knew that Dan would regularly *CK around behind Alice's back, so his reaction when shit finally hit the fan was not appreciated. He also told me that Dan was trying to come up with a plan to sue me for sharing private conversations without his consent. LOL. Told her I cheated on my BF with a colleague. Turns out the colleague was also in a relationship, and I grew to be friends with his GFI. Confessed to her what happened, and everyone broke up with each other. I ran into Alice a couple of years ago. I went over to say hi. She hugged me and looked genuinely happy to see me, asked me how I was, and said we should catch up soon. You know the drill. Had things been different, I believe we would have been friends. It's a very shitty feeling being the third person in a relationship. Dan has his share of responsibility, but I know I was better than that. I had to sit down and watch a person I grew to be very fond of get so hurt. And it was my fault. I will never go through anything like that again. Also, cheating isn't worth it. If it comes to that point, just break up. It feels so good knowing that you have nothing to hide. Stories number 8. Confession of a closeted alcoholic. I feel quite ashamed of what happened last weekend, to the point where I have come here to relinquish some of my guilt. Let me start by saying I need help. I know I should come out and be honest, but I am ashamed. I know the people who love me will understand and try to help me, but I am not that strong. Perhaps coming here is the first step for me, but I doubt it unless I stop drinking. I've done this in the past. My wife worked this past weekend and I buy a bottle of wine. I drink this bottle over lunchtime and continue to chase this buzz while playing with the kids in our pool. I have 2 hard seltzers, and I know my wife is coming home soon, so I have a mixed drink. For me, it's whiskey and soda. I can act in control with this amount. But this night was different. I remember my wife leaving for a dog walk while I started dinner. I remember pouring myself another drink knowing I had 15 minutes to finish that one and grab a new one. I remember starting the barbecue. I do not remember cooking our family meal. I do not remember the confrontation my wife had with me for leaving something in the car that made the car smell bad. I do not remember yelling at her and calling her an asshole and childish. I blacked out. I don't remember eating a steak dinner. Don't remember a good chunk of what happened. I woke up the next morning and I was clueless. My son, who is 12, looked at me strangely. My wife comes down and barely makes eye contact. I had no clue. I later said I was going for a dog walk, but the wife decided to come. I knew something was up, but I had no memory of what she asked. If I was going to apologize for what happened last night, I had no clue what happened. I just said I was sorry and rubbed her back. She went on to explain, as I did earlier, yelling at her constantly, making the kids afraid, and that she is concerned about my drinking. I didn't say anything other than I was sorry, because I couldn't remember any of it. I'm going to lose her and my family if I continue on this path. I'm going to take precious years off my life due to this lifestyle. I can't continue, but I fear whatever drives me to drink will always suck me into hiding that one drink so nobody knows I'm drinking again. Stories number 9. Ghosted by my boss. I'm a professional secretary and single mother. Finding time to date is rare and difficult. I thought I'd left my past behind, but it caught up with me, and my boss confessed his feelings for me. We shared a moment of weakness and only went so far in the office. But then without any explanation he suddenly stopped responding to my texts and calls. I've tried to reach out to him, but he's been ghosting me ever since. As I look back I wonder if it was ever truly about me at all. My fear is that my age is a factor and it left me feeling vulnerable and uncertain. I'd like to confront him since he's avoiding me and I felt like he left me hanging. However, I guess I should just accept that my dating days are over. Maybe I should just focus in my career and be a best mother to my daughter. In this way I could avoid the conflict in the office between me and my boss as well. Stories number 11. As an Asian woman living in a touristic area, I feel like we are pushed more and more into developing a white superiority kink. X tourism is very common in Southeast Asia, mainly by white males or white couples. So as someone who grew up in a touristic area, you usually get taught to have pride in your identity and some nationalism. Then growing up you start seeing rich white tourists in the street and they are treated with care because they have money. Then I start hearing stories from my friends who got approached by tourists for X and the ones that did it and how much they enjoy it or how different it felt compared to their Asian men, and the stories that come out about Asian beaux that were popular and crushed on our college, stories about them becoming bottoms to white tourists, which is surprisingly very common. A lot of white married men travel here to dominate Asian beaux, and many of these beaux thought they were straight before it, and many of which end up transitioning and becoming lady beaux. Add in a lot of other fetishes that tourists love trying, like cuckolding, race play, degradation, bondage, sadism, etc. And the thing is, for some weird reason, instead of being upset, I develop a need for more of it, developed kinks and enjoy it all while feeling shame for enabling it. I was happily dating until we got approached by a tourist couple, and our lives are so different right now. Stories number 12. I think my elder aunt is cheating on my elder uncle. Hi, my name is Rehan, 20, in a Muslim family. Mom, dad, elder uncle, younger uncle, elder uncle, wife. My aunt Afifa is there. She is very friendly. Tried to make jokes with me one day while I was using her mobile, found porn in it, and was completely awestruck to have hardcore porn. From that day I started to look and very differently. I started observing her moves. My elder uncle and Aunt Afifa married 3 years back. They did not had any kids. Everyone used to ask about that issue. They used to say trying one day, and no one were in the house. I asked about kids. She said that uncle is least interested to have kids now. She was having tears in eyes. I have consoled her. She made me to promise not to say this thing to anyone. I did exactly. Post to this: 1 year my aunt was traveling to her parents' home a lot. I say she used to observe that my elder uncle was not having time to drop her at her parents' place, so my younger uncle used to go with her. One day, in my younger uncle's phone also I found some bits of porn and pics. I was awestruck by seeing such thing. One day late night I asked her, "And will you marry? What kind of lady you want?" He indirectly started saying my elder appearance and her flaws. I understood that my younger uncle likes my elder aunt Afifa. After this I seen so many instances where my younger uncle and elder aunt Afifa had cute movements like bringing favorite ice cream, taking her to a movie, staying close to her and giving her attention. 5 years were passed, still my aunt Afifa was not pregnant. I have observed that my younger uncle, who used to go and drop my aunt Afifa at her parents' place, was reaching and coming late in night. He was found in his bed and started acting strange. My aunt, sometime there was problem with her in walking in the morning. I have heard once her morning while *king in her room. I was not knowing who is *king her in room. I thought it may be elder uncle, as younger uncle was also not there in bed. He said he was going out at night. One day at night in kitchen, I started seeing her adding something in milk, which was given to my elder uncle as he have habit of drinking milk at night. I observed this happens 2 to 3 a week. Same night my younger uncle also used to be not found in bed. One day I went to her room. I was searching batteries in cupboard and found lot of condom packets. Few were tear and used to there was a strange smell in it. Similar smell used to come when my younger uncle or elder uncle get lot of sweat. My aunt had changed from plain bra and panty to fancy and colorful bra and tan. Few were low cloth near *y region. Also found some lingerie with her. In winter season my younger uncle was used to be not found in bed daily. Also my aunt used to mourn in her room daily. One day she was adding something to milk given to uncle and she left from there without clearing that over powder. I have tasted a bit. It made me feel drowsy after having it. I have seen love bites on my aunt's neck and my younger uncle body when he comes out from the bath. After 7 years, my elder uncle and elder Aita Afifa had a girl when only resembles my aunt, not my elder uncle. After that, also my younger uncle not founding on bed was continued. Also my Afifa aunt mourn sounds. I don't know what exactly happening, but I seen a spark in both younger uncle and my elder aunt Afifa eyes when the talk or anything. I feel like she has cheated and still cheating on my elder uncle. Stories number 13. I hooked up with someone and now I am engaged with his friend. Excuse, I grammar as English is not my first language. Way back 2020 I hooked up with someone, let's just name him Kevin, from my work, and we only did it once. It was a small party and during that time, I was so broken-hearted from my previous ex, we are both drunk when we did it. Then, after so many months, he introduced me to his friend Nathan, who was single at that time. His friend and I eventually end up together and became engaged last year. During our preparation, Nathan, who is now my fiancé, said to me that he wanted Kevin to be his best man. I just simply said yes, since it is his decision anyway. I don't know if I should tell Nathan about this, since this thing happened between me and Kevin way before I get to know Nathan. T.S. When Nathan and I became official BFGF, Kevin messaged me to congratulate us. And he also said that he had no plans of telling Nathan regarding what happened, before we have came to an agreement to just be friends or casual to each other. Stories number 14. I'm very ugly and my life is unbearable. I'm an extremely ugly person. My face isn't just normal ugly, I look outright hideous. This has caused me a lot of pain and suffering throughout my life. I've been relentlessly bullied, abused and neglected by almost everyone I've encountered. Most people seem to despise me to the point they don't see me as a human being. I've never had any friends in real life and people start ghosting or outright blocking me after I reveal my face online. No one ever showed me any kindness or appreciation. I've been isolated in my house for years, and on rare occasions, when I do go outside, random strangers harass and laugh at me even when I'm just minding my own business. I try to be as quiet as possible and never initiate anything, but my mere existence seems to make people mad due to my appearance. I can't even get a minimum wage job, and soon I won't be able to support myself. Recently I've realized just how bad my situation is. From the moment I was born, I've already had no hope. Almost nobody can relate to me, as extremely unattractive people like me are rare. When I try to explain my issues, I'm often gaslighted or blamed for all my shortcomings. I hear things like it's your attitude or you need to change, work on yourself a lot, but I've tried everything I could and I've failed every single time. I've been desperately searching for jobs for years only to be rejected or ghosted after every interview. Then I started including my picture in my resume, and guess what? I stopped getting invited at all. Many people don't believe, or at least pretend to not believe, my experiences. They pretend nobody can be rejected from minimum wage jobs or harassed by strangers unprovoked like I am. I will never have friends, a job, or anyone who likes or appreciates me. No one respects me or even sees me as a human being. I'm extremely depressed and anxious all the time. I can't enjoy anything or find any distraction from my feelings. My life feels like it's absolute darkness, and there isn't even the tiniest gleam of light in it. There is nothing good ahead of me, only more suffering. It's becoming more unbearable with each passing day, and I'm not sure how much longer I can endure it. Thank you for reading. I've kept these feelings inside for years, and I needed to get them off my chest. Stories number 15. I just wanted to thank the universe, God, if you want to call it that, for my perfect little nephew. I call him the iron sperm cell. When his mom was pregnant with him, she smoked a ton of crack and heroin, and he came out just fine, more than fine really. He seems so smart. He seems to carefully observe the world around him, and he is so emotionally intuitive. I love the shit out of him, and couldn't fathom anything bad ever happening to him. His father, my brother, has almost beat the CPS case surrounding him for the past year. His mother sadly has lost rights to him because she can't stop doing drugs, and honestly she's not a good person anymore. I plan to have kids eventually, but even if I don't, I won't be too beat up about it because I get to be a father figure to him. I want to witness him grow up, but I honestly can't wait for him to get to an age where he gets curious enough to want to learn how to do things I like to do. One more thing about him: he hates sugar. Would you imagine that a 2-year-old hates sugar, hates candy, chocolate, soda, everything, which is perfect because diabetes runs in the family. He's such a loving little boy, and I can't express how much I love him. He's like my own son, and I'm very grateful for him to be in my life. Stories number 16. I'm scared to learn by my own. For context, I'm a 19 meters and I'm trying to improve my health to overcome anxiety, so I want to try a new hobby apart from playing video games cause I work in front of a screen, haha. I really want to do something that allows me to use my creativity and relaxing or simply being more active, so I wanted to try drawing or doing crochet or exercising, and I went to other subreddits related to this activities, and the first post on every of those places was the most perfect creation. Note to man, I tried to not to think about that because my therapist said I've to take things slowly, but it was so crushing. I saw PPL saying they did a little sketch while displaying the most cool piece of art, or a guy saying he's doing a light training while he's doing the most perfect form of calisthenics ever seen. I entered there with low expectations about myself and I exit without any will to continue. I did the same with exercise and my body hurts so badly despite doing exactly what I saw. I really hate learning by myself, but I have no money for someone to teach me. And I have friends who started the way after than me and they are doing so good. I feel really bad like a failure and it's just because I can't feel enough passion for picking up a pencil. I think I'm delusional. Stories number 17. I foo * king hate my roommate and I hate myself. So in January of 2023 I had to look for an apartment and someone to share it with since I can't afford rent on my own. I talked about this with my mom and she said she knows a girl daughter of one of her friends who is also looking for an apartment. I got in contact with her and, after a couple of weeks, we moved in together. We got along just fine most of the time and didn't have any major issues. Fast forward to mid-June of this year, we were already looking somewhere else to go because we didn't like the old place anymore. We found a nice place for a good price, so we agreed to move in July. The problem starts here. One day she says she wants to talk to our landlord to ask if we can move out early to not pay the last month of rent. I love the shit out of him and couldn't fathom anything bad ever happening to him. His father, my brother, has almost beat the CPS case surrounding him for the past year. His mother sadly has lost rights to him because she can't stop doing drugs and honestly she's not a good person anymore. I plan to have kids eventually, but even if I don't, I won't be too beat up about it because I get to be a father figure to him. I want to witness him grow up, but I honestly can't wait for him to get to an age where he gets curious enough to want to learn how to do things I like to do. One more thing about him, he hates sugar. Would you imagine that a 2-year-old hates sugar, hates candy, chocolate, soda, everything, which is perfect because diabetes runs in the family. He's such a loving little boy and I can't express how much I love him. He's like my own son and I'm very grateful for him to be in my life. Stories number 16. I'm scared to learn by my own. For context, I'm a 19 meters and I'm trying to improve my health to overcome anxiety, so I want to try a new hobby apart from playing video games cause I work in front of a screen, haha. I really want to do something that allows me to use my creativity and relaxing or simply being more active, so I wanted to try drawing or doing crochet or exercising, and I went to other subreddits related to this activities, and the first post on every of those places was the most perfect creation. Note to man, I tried to not to think about that because my therapist said I've to take things slowly, but it was so crushing. I saw PPL saying they did a little sketch while displaying the most cool piece of art, or a guy saying he's doing a light training while he's doing the most perfect form of calisthenics ever seen. I entered there with low expectations about myself and I exit without any will to continue. I did the same with exercise and my body hurts so badly despite doing exactly what I saw. I really hate learning by myself, but I have no money for someone to teach me. And I have friends who started the way after than me and they are doing so good. I feel really bad like a failure and it's just because I can't feel enough passion for picking up a pencil. I think I'm delusional. Stories number 17. I foo * king hate my roommate and I hate myself. So in January of 2023 I had to look for an apartment and someone to share it with since I can't afford rent on my own. I talked about this with my mom and she said she knows a girl daughter of one of her friends who is also looking for an apartment. I got in contact with her and, after a couple of weeks, we moved in together. We got along just fine most of the time and didn't have any major issues. Fast forward to mid-June of this year, we were already looking somewhere else to go because we didn't like the old place anymore. We found a nice place for a good price, so we agreed to move in July. The problem starts here. One day she says she wants to talk to our landlord to ask if we can move out early to not pay the last month of rent. I told her that he wouldn't agree and that if she wanted to do that she would have said so earlier. Either way, we agreed to call him just to ask. When he picked up, he said that we either move out at the end of the month, as we agreed upon, or we pay a fine for breaking the contract. Out of nowhere she gets mad and starts yelling at him that why would we need to pay a fine, that the apartment is shit and some other things. The landlord gets mad as well and says that he wants us out of the apartment by Monday. This happened on Friday, and then hangs up. I started to freak out since I didn't have anywhere else to go, but she told me not to worry, that she has friends we can stay with. I didn't know what to do, so I called my mom to ask for advice. She told me that we shouldn't do that and that we had to apologize and stay till July. I then talked to my roommate and told her that I am going to call the landlord back to apologize and that we have to pay. Now she gets mad at me and tells me she is not going to pay rent because she thinks the landlord is stealing from us. Then I get mad as well and tell her that if she is not going to pay, I would call her mom to ask for her part of the rent. And then I go to my room to do exactly that. Her mom told me she is going to talk to her to figure out what is going on. Meanwhile, I called the landlord to apologize and tell him that I would talk to my roommate to clear things up. After a couple days without talking, I messaged my roommate and told her that we needed to talk. When I got home, I went to her room and told her that I was sorry but I didn't know what else to do. She says that she would pay rent but she wouldn't apologize. This is the first time I started to doubt if I really wanted to continue living with her. So after a couple weeks, we are back to normal and we were already moving our stuff in the contract we signed. We agreed to paint the walls of the apartment before we left, so I asked her when she was free so we could do that. She tells me that she is only going to paint the big stains on the walls, but not every wall. I tried to tell her that if we didn't paint the apartment we would have to pay another fine. She didn't care and only painted what she thought was dirty. I tried to paint my room the best I could, but we ran out of paint so we didn't finish. When the day to give the keys back came, she right before the landlord came, left me to take the blame for the bad paint job. When the landlord saw the walls, he said he would need to paint them again because they were dirty and that we would have to pay for that, because the deposit we gave him when we first started living there would not be enough. I live in Argentina and here the inflation is horrible, so the money we gave him back then is worth a lot less than what it was. We also had to pay for the building maintenance for the last month we were there. I told her that, but then again she gets mad and tells me that she won't pay because we are already out of that place and that the landlord should use the deposit for the paint and the building maintenance. I told her that the deposit wouldn't be enough for either of those things, but she wouldn't listen to me. Now the landlord keeps asking me when we can pay the money we owe him, but I can't pay that on my own. I feel *King hate her for being so stubborn and not owning up to her mistakes, but I also know all this is my fault for not standing up to her the first time this happened and trusting her to not do something like this again. But I am not brave enough. I am really anxious and lack self-confidence, so most of the time I let people step over me and I hate myself for that, and now I'm stuck with her for at least another year before I can find someone else to live with because I already signed on the new place. Stories number 18. Recently discovered I am bi and now I'm a slutty bottom. LOL. Basically about 3 years ago I discovered I was bi-curious, then a month ago got on Grindr. Luckily the guy I hooked up with was a nice guy and willing to take things slow. We see each other once a week. First time we met I performed oral on him. Love it. Second time he tried topping me, but it hurt too much. Even though I used toes that are the same size as him, tonight he not only topped me but was able to get all the way in his 7 inches. But pretty large diameter, and he did me. He's clean. I've seen his test results. Oh my god, it's amazing. No wonder bottoms love it. To add, I never thought in a million years I'd ever be 1 topped, 2 by a black guy and white, 3 with a guy period, LOL, 4 with a guy less than half my age, 57/26. Stories number 19. I'm afraid of my dad. On a usual day-to-day basis me and my dad get along really well, but as the title says, I'm scared of him. I'm not sure how normal this is, but he is often angry and it takes little for him to go from one extreme to another. It can be specific things that trigger his outbursts, like being told it's okay, for example, which will turn into angry yelling about how I'm not to belittle him, etc., or the house not being clean. After he comes home from work he expects my mom to do all cleaning, cooking in the house when she's home, despite the fact she works multiple jobs and doesn't have the time for that. However, he's usually home 6-ish hours before her. I remember when I was younger I'd hear him constantly insulting my mom when they'd argue whether it was about her personal life or her friends, i.e. telling her that because she was annoying her friends didn't like her, or if she'd change her appearance, hair, makeup, etc. And he didn't like it. He'd make snide comments like I miss when my mom's name had nice blonde hair. Yes, this actually happened throughout my childhood. I learned that if I'd had a bad day work I would be better to not speak, as it usually resulted in me getting yelled at. A few specific memories that stuck with me were when I was about 7 to 9. I can't remember exacts. He got mad about our cat being on the counter. Stupid, I know, and threw a knife in my direction, which thankfully missed me. He and my mum, who was a new driver, literally having got her license only 2 days prior, got into an argument whilst in the car and forcing her to drive in our home down an unfamiliar road despite her anxiety about it. And the fact that she and I were both in tears as he yelled at her to drive really irks me. When I was really young, probably about 6, I'd been upset about not being able to play with my friends and had yelled about how nobody likes my friends and how they were stupid and annoying. Keep in mind this is 6-year-olds we're talking about. But yeah, I think you get the gist. I feel a few of these things probably are normal, but in just feeling tired and need to get it off my chest. My dad suffers from depression and most likely some undiagnosed stuff that he refuses to acknowledge, and he didn't have the best upbringing either. Thing is, give it 10 minutes and he'll act like nothing happened. Currently sitting in silence in my room because he's mad again and mum's not home yet for another 4 hours in just getting tired of this. Stories number 20. I did very creepy thing during vacation. A few years ago I took a solo trip to Hawaii. I booked a stay at a hostel dorm that was co-ed. It was like 2 other guys and 2 girls in the room. One of them was this super hot girl from Europe and she wore these tight *si little bow shorts to bed. They were really thin and tight and could tell she wasn't wearing panties under them. I was surprised that she was even comfortable wearing that in a shared room with other guys in it. But she was very cool and friendly and we spent the whole night talking about random stuff until we went to sleep. The next day I was in the room alone changing and I looked over at her bed and noticed her bag sitting there with those same shorts sticking out from the side. What came over me, but I decided to grab them, give them a sniff. I've always thought guys that are into that were weird, but at this moment, I finally understood why it's a thing. And why those weird guys like to spend big money on girls' panties. The smell of her *si was like instant *gra. I couldn't help but to start jerking myself. It was such a rush, it was like drug. I felt the sensation of me about to come and at the same time, I could hear people outside. In the hallway any moment, one of my other roommates could walk into the room. I didn't want to leave a mess so I put the shorts on my *k as I started to come. I busted the biggest nut of my life right in the crotch where her *y would go. It took like a whole 30 seconds to get it all out. Now the shorts were soaked with my CM. After I finished I put the shorts back where I found them, got dressed, and went on about my day. I did see her go into the room like 30 minutes or so afterwards. I was pretty nervous that at any moment she would realize what happened and report it to the hostel staff. I know Anne threw a knife in my direction which thankfully missed me. Kian, my mum, who was a new driver literally having got her license only 2 days prior, got into an argument whilst in the car and forcing her to drive in our home down an unfamiliar road despite her anxiety about it. And the fact that she and I were both in tears as he yelled at her to drive really irks me. When I was really young, probably about 6, I'd been upset about not being able to play with my friends and had yelled about how nobody likes my friends and how they were stupid and annoying. Keep in mind this is 6-year-olds we're talking about. But yeah, I think you get the gist. I feel a few of these things probably are normal, but in just feeling tired and need to get it off my chest. My dad suffers from depression and most likely some undiagnosed stuff that he refuses to acknowledge, and he didn't have the best upbringing either. Thing is, give it 10 minutes and he'll act like nothing happened. Currently sitting in silence in my room because he's mad again and mum's not home yet for another 4 hours in just getting tired of this. Stories number 20. I did very creepy thing during vacation. A few years ago I took a solo trip to Hawaii. I booked a stay at a hostel dorm that was co-ed. It was like 2 other guys and 2 girls in the room. One of them was this super hot girl from Europe and she wore these tight *si little bow shorts to bed. They were really thin and tight and could tell she wasn't wearing panties under them. I was surprised that she was even comfortable wearing that in a shared room with other guys in it. But she was very cool and friendly and we spent the whole night talking about random stuff until we went to sleep. The next day I was in the room alone changing and I looked over at her bed and noticed her bag sitting there with those same shorts sticking out from the side. What came over me, but I decided to grab them, give them a sniff. I've always thought guys that are into that were weird, but at this moment, I finally understood why it's a thing. And why those weird guys like to spend big money on girls' panties. The smell of her *si was like instant *gra. I couldn't help but to start jerking myself. It was such a rush, it was like drug. I felt the sensation of me about to come and at the same time, I could hear people outside. In the hallway any moment, one of my other roommates could walk into the room. I didn't want to leave a mess so I put the shorts on my *k as I started to come. I busted the biggest nut of my life right in the crotch where her *y would go. It took like a whole 30 seconds to get it all out. Now the shorts were soaked with my CM. After I finished I put the shorts back where I found them, got dressed, and went on about my day. I did see her go into the room like 30 minutes or so afterwards. I was pretty nervous that at any moment she would realize what happened and report it to the hostel staff. We stayed in the room together a couple more nights without incident and without her ever noticing, and yes, she did wear them again. Till this day her and I are good long-distance friends. We talk all the time and we even flirt with each other. She knows I was attracted to her and she tells me all the time that I should have made a move when I had the chance. Sometimes I'm tempted to tell her what I did, but there's no way I could ever. I definitely should have just shot my shot with her instead of creeping, but now she's on the opposite side of the world. I don't know what came over me that day and I feel like shit for what I did. But in the moment it was one of the best orgasms ever had in my life. Stories number 21. I'm glad someone told me to FaceTime this guy. I met this guy on Reddit from a post I made and we got to talking and I liked him. We seemed to have a decent amount And we were both the same age, 26, but he lived in England and I lived in America. Anyways, I told this other older lady that I know about this guy, and she told me that I should FaceTime him to see if his legit seemed like decent advice, plus the fact that his account on here randomly got deleted. I decided to ask him if we could move to another app and video chat there. He seemed to agree and asked me which app I wanted to use. I told him WhatsApp. He said his phone was glitching so he couldn't download the app. A little suspicious, but I gave it time to be sure. He said he would try to download it the next day, but he still wasn't able to, so he suggested we use Discord since he has that. He told me he had to re-download the app. He got the app and he said he would message me there. Never happened, and he kept messaging me on Reddit, so I asked him, why didn't you message me on Discord? I gave his my user and everything, so he could no response from this man. So after some time passed, I just told him that I don't want to talk anymore. Because if he can't show his face, then I can't trust him, because he didn't even send a picture of himself while I showed him what I looked like. This guy was a virgin, so I imagine he probably felt insecure of his appearance. But that doesn't change the fact that we were talking about dating, and you have to at least know what the person looks like to date them. He told me he was a redhead, he worked out so he had some muscle. But was also lean and 511 allegedly, because for all I know this dude could be 100 pounds, 50 years old with a wife and family. I have no problem with him being a virgin, as I'm also a virgin, but the fact he wants to have a relationship and a family, but he both doesn't want to show his face online, and he doesn't go out much besides going to work and going to the gym, it seems unlikely that he'll find someone. So good luck to him, but I'm glad I brought up FaceTiming early so I don't have to waste more time on some who won't show their face. Stories number 22. I made up a fake group of LGBTQ travelers so I could book a sold-out cruise. In game myself recently. He wanted to go on a cruise, but the voyage was sold out. I was checking every day if there was cancellations, but could never get a cabin. So I went and made a fake Facebook account as a super conservative woman joined the cruise Facebook page and announced that I heard through the grapevine this was a gay cruise and there was a large group traveling. I knew that there would be at least some upset people about this, and it might cause them to cancel, delay their vacation to another sailing. Sure as hell, the next morning, I woke up and there was a cabin available to book. I still feel kind of guilty to this day, but we had a fantastic cruise. Stories number 23. When I was a teen, I tricked a man into sending me PSN cards. When I was 14, my dad got me a PS3, but I had no games to play. So I used to spend a lot of my time playing a free beta game online called PlayStation Home. It's basically kinda like the game Sims, but online. Everything is virtual, but you pay real money to buy virtual things like clothes, special customizations, house, apartment, etc. You can also interact with people all over the world in public virtual areas. When you type, a little bubble appears above your avatar's head in which anyone can see nearby. Anyway, I was using a girl avatar to troll, and I met this Arabic man who was in his 30s who claimed to be rich. At first he was teaching me Arabic language. Then it escalated to this weird sub-kink that he had. I had no idea what any of that meant when I was a teen, but he wanted me to call him master and make my avatar do certain gestures, and in return he would buy me PSN cards, usually $50 cards. They are like gift cards, which you redeem the code and can buy things for PlayStation, so he basically just sent me the code. Sometimes he would tell me how to spend the PSN cards, like what outfits to buy for my avatar, which were usually skimpy outfits. I did everything he asked. I was just excited to download digital games from the PSN cards that he would give me. I did, however, spend most of his money on PlayStation Home content. This went on for a long time. Eventually I stopped spending so much time in that virtual world as I got older and wanted real-life experiences. I eventually stopped signing online in PlayStation, but I found out years after that PlayStation Home closed way back in 2015. And it's crazy thinking about it, because thousands of users were active and spent a lot of time and money on that game, which they can't play anymore. Stories number 24. I feel bad about things and I am trying to distance myself from the people I used to hang out with. So last year I started preparing for my entrance exams and made a couple of friends online. We all studied together for the whole year, solved each other's doubts, gave motivation to each other, and also supported each other during the preparation phase. It was a tough time for all of us, but we ended up being close to each other. Meanwhile, I met a guy in this study group with whom I fell in love with, so after the exam 2 of our friends didn't perform well and were depressed about it. I, on the other hand, did comparatively good and was expecting to get admission in a decent college, and one of my friend scored pretty well, so now it was time for our interviews, while the other 2 friends were preparing for other entrance exams. So after all the exams and interviews, it was time for the final admission process, And turns out that my friends who I was preparing with from the start got admission this year. Even the guy who performed bad got a college, but I don't have anything with me. I feel bad for myself when I look at them, chilling in their new colleges, while they occasionally call or text me and want to meet. I am avoiding them because I feel like I won't be able to face them. The guy I love is very supportive and even wants to stay with me after all this and motivating me to start my preparation again. But I feel bad whenever I talk to him and feel like he deserves someone better than me. As for me, I turned out to be a failure. Sometimes I feel I should just run away and disappear from their world. Stories number 25. Everyone says that women have high standards. I think that men are the ones who do and have unrealistic beauty standards. I was having a conversation with a friend the other day. He happened to see a picture of younger Taylor Swift. My friend called her average looking and then proceeded to say that she's no Margot Robbie. I got mad. It's okay to say that you don't find her attractive, but saying that young Taylor Swift was average looking is not. How many women look like that in real life? She's not the kind of woman you're going to come across if you walk into your local Walmart. It's not an opinion. Women are already expected to look perfect, and if you imply that a woman needs to look like Margot Robbie to be considered attractive, which is what he did, then you're making the problem worse. These are unrealistic standards. It's just not fair to any woman who hears something like this. Lower your standards without all the professional makeup. Not even Margot Robbie herself looks like the Margot Robbie you see on the screen. I don't know what the cause is. Maybe social media and constant exposure to attractive women has ruined many men's minds and has got them believing that attractive women are the norm when they're not. I've noticed this way too often. I'm a 25-year-old woman and I have generally always felt confident about my appearance. I was the most popular girl in high school and I was sought after in my little town, so I grew up feeling attractive then. I went to college and things didn't change, but eventually being exposed to these expectations hurt my self-esteem to the point that I felt the need to get breast implants last year. Fortunately, I was strong enough to realize that my appearance wasn't the problem. Some crazy expectations are the problem, and I'm not going to seek a surgeon anymore. Stories number 26. I cry every day at work. I spend every day being overwhelmed at my job. I am trying to do the work of 4 people stacked with countless special projects and tasks, and doing my best to just look like I don't drool on my shirt when the higher-ups come by my office. Today I was just completely overwhelmed and I was crying because everyone was either calling or knocking on my door because I am the only IT person at this company. When I started there were 4 people and now it is just me less than a year later. I am exhausted and half the time I want to throw the phone against a wall when it rings. Right now I have stacks of equipment that has to be set up, inventoried, deployed, and updated. I am absolutely exhausted right now and doing the best I can just to get anything done. I'm looking at the list of things I have to do tomorrow and it makes me want to throw up from stress. Stories number 27. I've been pretending to be a pedophile. I don't know if this is against the rules or not, but I'll just write it anyways. I've been raging baiting online for a couple years to make people hate me. When people hate me, I feel a sense of sadness that I probably shouldn't feel. Because of someone I barely know, anyone can make me sob by insulting me. I hate it and it makes me feel miserable after, but it is equally addicting. It feels they hate me, but the second they show even the smallest shred of affection, I become attached. It makes me feel more loved than anything else in the world. When I was younger I used to ask for degradation and it didn't really work. But if you admit to being a pedophile, it does wonders to change how people respond towards you. A lot of people actually actively do start hating you and they actually insult you. It's depressing, but I do it automatically when I feel depressed and irrational. Because insults are what comfort me. I'm not an actual pedophile, but lying about being one has become something I do frequently. Stories number 28. Old lady neighbor F72 touched my private place. I'm 40. I was helping my friend's mom last week getting her phone set up. Her son isn't around, and she referred me to a friend she was on the phone with at the time for me to check her laptop. Turned out she lived across the street from me. I arrived at the other lady's across the street from me 2 hours or so later and she wanted me to stay and kept talking, offering me beers. I had offered to maybe pick her up in the morning from a medical appointment but missed her call while I was still asleep, so anyway she called me and she got home and offered to make food for me. Next day after that came around and she texted me again because she needed help mowing the lawn, which I did. She offered money, but I refused. The day after that she calls me up and asks me if I want to go out for something to eat. I had errands to run and told her I'd call back later. By the time I did I was still on the road, so she's asked if I just wanted to come over instead. I brought food, drank beer. She kept on talking, keeping me there talking and talking. Anyways, there was minor flirting, but whatever. She kept complaining about her back and having massage experience. I Offered a back rub right before that, though she was lying in bed, and had asked me to sit with her while we watched TV together. Before leaving, she mentioned she wanted me to trim some hedges, so I called her the next day. She said she wasn't in the mood to walk me through the job and that I should come over for some food. Given the fact there had been minor flirting since we met, I got horny big old lady tits anyways. I went to a friend's house that night and was pretty hungover the next day. She texted me late in the day saying that I'd been quiet all day, and jokingly I think saying that I'm not interested in the old lady anymore. She even called me and I wasn't texting back, which I eventually did. The day after I offered to do the hedges, that she insisted we hang out and eat and that I could do them later. I got horny again and ran to the bathroom because I felt my D**k getting hard and had to tuck it in my waistband. I was wearing a loose t-shirt with a low-hanging collar. I realized after the fact that she could see my hard-on tucked in my waistband pressed against my stomach when I bent over to sit or stand up from the chair down my collar. At one point she was sitting while I was standing in front of her, both talking, playfully flirting I guess, and I fist bumped her, to which she jokingly said she's a woman, so I took her hand and kissed it. Then while she giggled I'd switch hands, jokingly kissing them back and forth. She said much better. I was bent over, turns out D**k visible, and we both ended up by the kitchen counter as she gave me a wire to charge my phone. And this is where I figured my D**k might have been visible before. As we started turning away from the counter, she tickle grabbed my stomach, D**k grabbing over my t-shirt for about 2 seconds with the pretext of tickling. I just played it off, pretending along with her, just saying, "Damn woman, that's some good hands you got there." She did the same, talking whatever redundant bullshit, but flirting anyways. I went to the bathroom right away to see if my D**k was visible down my collar, bent over in front of the mirror. And sure enough, good view. I ended up mowing the whole backyard, after which she caressed my arm saying how nice and handsome I am. I drank a little and she kept blabbing and blabbing. I was tired as shit and went home to sleep. The next day she texted me saying she was worried about me because of how tired I seemed and that she hoped I had a good sleep. She texted me several hours later saying, "You miss me?" I didn't reply back for a few hours. And we had an exchange, nothing really, though just bullshit. I texted her good morning today with a "kiss me, I'm Irish" gif. She seems to have gotten attached real fast and she's emotional. She initially acted like she wasn't interested in anything **schwal, which seems a little Luke bullshit, but I don't want to have a whole relationship with this old lady while not getting my D**k sucked. Not sure how to push forward or how to talk to her about it tactfully. She literally just called me while I was writing all of this. LOL, I'll call her back later. Stories number 29. I don't feel alright. I feel like I'm a horrible person. I've ruined my life with financial irresponsibility, and useless shit, drugs, and multitudes of other things. I feel like I'm incapable of feeling certain emotions, like love and affection or even happiness. I've been diagnosed with depression, ADHD, and anxiety. I've been off meds for a few years and I can't afford them myself. I know I need therapy, yet I can't afford it, let alone get on a wait list. I feel like every friendship I have gets ruined eventually, be it friends or partners or whatever. Every time I try fixing myself or helping myself, I just end up going back to hurting myself. I feel like I've turned the hobby I used to enjoy and use as a way to take my mind off things and escape into an obsession. I hoard and keep things because I feel like I have some kind of connection to it or memories tied to it that I just can't let go. I can't get myself to get rid of those things, or even just things I don't need anymore. I don't and can't tell people how I truly feel because I'm afraid of how they will see me. I put up this mask of I'm doing fine, but in reality I'm so **head up. I just can't do things some days and just sit in my room **king off and doing nothing that betters me. I don't take care of myself like I should. I keep telling myself I need to go back to the gym and that I need to eat better and that I need to do X or Y, but I still haven't. I ruin myself over and over. It feels like that I don't even know what I am at this point. Sometimes I feel like I should just die because I don't have anything to contribute to this **head up world. I'm scared of the future, especially in my country. Our two presidential candidates are a senile old man and a convicted felon who can get off scot-free and wants to set our country back 100 years. I don't know what I'm doing with my life or what I want to do. I say I'm going to go to college someday, but truth be told, I don't **king know if that's going to happen. I wish I could just start over in life clean slate. There's so many more things I could probably mention, but I don't know. Stories number 30. My girlfriend's entitled and outrageous demands are driving me crazy. Throwaway account because my girlfriend might find out. My relationship with Sarah started off great. We met in a vegan bakery and she had this infectious smile. We got along well, discussing our love for animals and environmental causes. We had both been involved in various activism protests, which was a bonding experience for us. Fast forward a few months, and the honeymoon phase seems to be over. Or maybe it was just a mirage once things got serious and we moved in together. The real Sarah showed her face. At first it was just the constant nagging about me not being vegan enough. I eat vegan food most of the time, but I'm not perfect. She'd scold me for slipping up and eating a chicken nugget at work that turned into her making me feel guilty for not being pure. Then there were her weight issues. She's gained a lot of weight since we started dating, which is understandable since we both have a weakness for vegan junk food. But instead of being proactive about her health, she insisted on blaming everyone else for her size. We can't go to a bar or restaurant without her complaining about a lack of options or the perceived fat phobia of the staff. Her autism is something she uses to her advantage. She claims disability discrimination for everything. If we go to a movie and the sound effects are too loud, she yell at the staff and demand a refund. If a waiter gets her order wrong, she scream about how her ASD requires special accommodations. She's also obsessed with true crime documentaries. It's a hotbed for these, with new cases popping up like daisies. But her obsession has become unhealthy. She spends all day watching these shows and then accuse me of being a killer because I didn't reply to her texts while I was at work. She has this delusion that she's psychic, and when she's high she go on these wild rants about seeing dead bodies in our house and how the police are corrupt. I've started locking the doors and checking the fridge for any missing people just to keep the peace. Her latest demand was to replace the couch with a murder-proof one. She saw a commercial for a couch that had a steel frame and could withstand a full-on assault, and now she wants it. Of course, she won't pay for half of it. I love Sarah, but these entitled, outrageous demands are driving me crazy. How do I handle this? How do I support her without feeling like I'm walking on eggshells all the time? Am I wrong for feeling this way? TLDR, my girlfriend has become more entitled and outrageous with her demands. After we moved in together, I'm struggling to find balance in our relationship. Stories number 31. I FN seeked up and am suffering with the consequences. Let me start off by saying I had a girlfriend for 5 years, and they were the best 5 years of my life. There were a lot of struggles with my family and hers, but guys, this was the love of my life. We were through so much stuff nobody should be put through. But we did everything together and stuck through everything. But that stuff doesn't come with no consequences. I started feeling apathetic. I hated everything. I developed severely demented and sadistic thoughts on those who had wronged us, but I acted like it was natural. I completely lost feelings, and growing up, I was hardwired into thinking that men suffer in silence, and that's what I did. I didn't even realize I pushed my girlfriend at the time away. I was numb and emotionless. And after about half a year of feeling this way, we both decided to break up, and I realized that those thoughts and everything I had on my shoulders was due to her family, not her. Her dad was a recovering alcoholic and he was doing good until his dog meat looking girlfriend decided she wanted more attention and realized she could only get that if Hayes drunk. Her dad abused her little sister and little brother on separate occasions, and I was there beside her every step of the way. Her dad disowned her and attempted to manipulate her. But neither of us let that happen. I almost went to jail because of these instances. This girl saved me from my home life as well. My dad is an alcoholic as well, but not on the same level as hers. My mom's manipulative, and nothing I ever did was good enough regardless of how good I did it. There are so many more things, but those were by far the worst. Guys, when you find love, don't let anything break it. It's hard. It's gonna drag you in the mud and rip you apart. Do not suffer in silence as I did. Talk to your significant other. Express yourself, or else you'll lose everything you care about like I have. I realized I loved her till late. Stories number 32. I have violated my roommate's privacy because of my insane worries. I have been diagnosed for years ago with OCD, in particular related to contamination, germs, bacteria, body fluids, and pollutants. I am particularly sensible to cigarette smoke. It freaks me out and doesn't allow me to get any close to cigarette smokers. My new roommate is a smoker and his room is next to mine. I didn't know him, but his look was quite bold. He has piercings, tattoos, looks very tall, and he gave me an overall bad impression. Yesterday he wrote a message on our house chat group that he wouldn't be home, and tonight I happened to not be able to sleep because of the terror that he might smoke in his room through the window, contaminating mine as well. I decided to walk in his room knowing he wouldn't be there to check for any sign of him smoking inside his room, but I found him still sleeping. I pretended I suffer from sleepwalking, and this allowed me to know him better. Turns out the dude is a super well-educated guy who has a chemical engineering degree and offered himself to help me relax, drink some water, and get fresh air. I apologized to him and gave him a lift to work as he doesn't have a car or a bike. Now I feel terrible because I did something terrible to a genuinely nice guy. And he even pretended an illness. No, sleepwalking isn't an illness, and I feel like an immature douchebag who deserves absolutely no love from anyone. I also feel disconnected to reality, almost like irrational took control over my rational life. I act nonsense, uncontrolled by my contamination obsession every day for every single second of my life. I need to put my clothes out of the room just in case some contaminants, and into them, I wash my hands multiple times per hour. And I need to make my girlfriend follow strict rules in order to prevent my anxiety. I feel hopeless. Stories number 33. I have a massive crush on my coworker. We work in retail. When she started, we got along well enough and she seemed nice. We didn't talk much at first, but the more we worked together, the more we would chat, and I thought she was really cool. At first it was just platonic feelings, and I really just enjoyed working with her and the little conversations we would have. After a while I realized I was starting to catch feelings for her, and I decided it was best to switch my shifts around, so we would work together less. Was hoping the crush would fade away after time, and everything would go back to normal. Well, that didn't work. I started looking forward to the days we would work together, even if it was just in passing, and just seeing her would usually make my day. Now she has started to get really close to one of our other coworkers. They see each other every day, and they seem to have formed some sort of relationship with each other. Seeing them together is just making work miserable. I'm not jealous or mad at what's going on, and I don't resent either of them or anything. I just hate that I have these feelings, and I wish I could just go to work without feeling this miserable all the time. Stories number 34. I just wanted to be lifted. I 1/8F who is 166 centimeters tall and weighs 150 pounds 70 kilograms. Just want to be lifted for once in my life. Growing up, I was always the big heavy girl in the class and was the person who always gave piggyback rides to the smaller skinnier girls. I've never had a relationship with a guy where we were close enough for him to lift me up either. I don't have any older brothers either. I loved watching dramas growing up, and every time there is a scene where the ML carries or lifts the FL, I only wonder when I could also experience something like that. I know most people prefer to do stunts like that with small petite girls, but there isn't anything I can do because I'm not short or skinny. I just hope one day I can find a girl guy who is stronger than me and can lift me or give me piggyback rides so I too can gain the experience. Stories number 35. I told people that I had cancer in the 6th grade. I got bullied really bad in 6th grade because I was very vocal about my love for anime, and everyone thought it was weird. This was in 2014, so when I found out I was moving schools, I told my best friend to help me out with telling people I had cancer to make people feel bad for bullying me. She was practically my only friend, so no one would know if I was lying or not because no one really knew me like that. We started telling people, and when I moved schools, had her tell them that I died from the cancer. She told me this one girl started crying when she told her I died. I don't know if she ever told the truth to them. She hates me now, so I'll never know. Stories number 36. My parents are torturing me. I 15F can't stand my parents 50 meters and for 3F anymore. They were together for 20 plus years. They got together after my dad separated from his first wife, whom he married when he was 16. Because my grandpa forced him. After getting her pregnant, they had 4 more kids after that. I'll spare you the details, but I will say that throughout the first few years of their marriage, my dad was psychologically abusive towards my mom and had an alcohol problem. I have foggy memories of the times he came drunk and he scared me, my mom, and my sister. He has a severe jealousy problem that always ended up affecting my mom and whatever she did, from studying to generating issues in her workplace. We moved to Canada when I was 10, and in 2020 my mom began working at a vegan restaurant in downtown Toronto, in which she has been successful and became the sous chef. Problems began to arise when my dad started being suspicious of my mom cheating with her boss, who by the way is a gay married man and who sees her as a sister, and began making offensive comments and harassing my mom into admitting she was cheating, which of course never happened as she never even thought about it. This kept going on throughout the years, occasionally until it ceased. We seemed to be getting better and closer as a family, until in 2023 my dad's twin brother came to visit from Mexico from March to July, which was honestly the worst period of my life, as my uncle made uncomfortable jokes and comments about me and my weight. My mom and dad's genetics and a binge eating disorder made me a bigger girl, but not to the point of being morbidly obese or had issues with cholesterol, blood sugar, etc., saying that I should try losing weight, as it would make me feel lighter, and recommending his unhealthy weight loss habits that included using a very strong laxative, to which I would laugh and wave it off. He got progressively worse, as he also had a jealousy and possessiveness issues with his then wife, who stayed in Mexico to take care of the radio station they had together and their 2 kids. Issue is that he used to spy her 24/7 through the security cameras they had installed all over their house and radio studio. He would call her as soon as something looked off and would have arguments with her if she didn't answer the phone. Overall, he's an awful human being that eventually brainwashed my dad into going back into his old ways. My dad began to believe my mom would cheat on him with everyone that came into contact with her now, including women, since her coworkers are queer people. My mom would never do that. I know her better than anyone. She's the sweetest lady to everyone that knows her and appreciates her. If my dad wasn't so blind, he would have noticed that after 20 years of marriage she still had the biggest crush on him. In September of 2023, all of this started to get progressively worse. He would question her every day and be mad for no reason at all, and once everything was going to shit, he'd cry and tell my mom to apologize. My mom began to get tired of this. She'd cry and yell at him. They separated at the beginning of 2024 after many big arguments that ended up in all of us screaming. My dad went to live with my uncle and my cousin M17, who came back August with the rest of his family, but his wife ended up leaving with his daughter because, again, awful human being. My mom was suffering a lot. She missed my dad deep inside, but he was hurting her with his actions and the things he did when he was blinding by his jealousy, which included non-consensual touching, harassing her boss, one of her friends who is also her co-worker, and today, one of my sister's co-workers who liked to post about the place my mom, my sister, and I went to eat at. Which means my dad took the time to go through the people who liked her post. Absolutely terrifying. They're always arguing about something, whether it is about work, money, why dad refuses to give us Hayes on disability and gets paid a pension, since he had a workplace accident he never can recover from, or not being present for me. Not relevant to the story, all in just pissed and need to tell someone, but he missed my first recital with my band class in which I played the sax. He forced me into playing the sax because he always wanted to, just because he thought my mom would be there, and they'd start arguing. My mom wasn't there either. Now the reason why I say they're torturing me is because they both vent to a 15-year-old about their issues. My mom asks me if she should feel guilty for not loving him the same anymore, asking me what to do. I want her to know I can't help her. I've only been on a long-distance relationship that ended in January, and even am struggling with love and saying she'd be better off dead. I understand she's suffering and everything, but I think it's cruel to say those things to your own child, then kind of weird to ask for that kind of advice. My dad prefers to not bring her up when we're together, but he will start venting to me and my sister 20f. If my mom tries to shut down Theo argument, and he still has things to say, which overwhelms me because most of the time he just makes things about himself and won't acknowledge his own mistakes. I'm sorry for the long post. I just need advice. School is off for the summer, and the only person who would listen to me and give me advice, my science teacher, isn't in contact with me. Stories number 37. Why does my partner refuse to even acknowledge my birthday? Every year my partner tells me what he wants for his birthday months in advance, and I always get it for him. He has expensive tastes, so these gifts are not cheap. He does not get me a gift or a card for my birthday. He doesn't even wish me a happy b-day. This has been the case for many years. Don't make a big deal about a birthday gift like he does. I really would be happy with a wish. Any advice? Edit 1. To be fair, my partner used to do everything for me. Laundry, cooking, dry cleaning, grocery shopping, and miscellaneous errands. He insisted on doing everything. Over time, he started resenting me, so I told him to stop all the favors. I do my own errands and everything now. He's a better cook, so I do the kitchen cleanup. I was about to leave him 3 years ago, but he was diagnosed with late third-stage cancer, and I chose to stay. I've been with him for 24 years in total. He was there for me when I had serious medical issues. I couldn't leave him to go through treatment and living with cancer alone, so even though I was ready to leave, I couldn't. He has a lot of energy. You wouldn't know he's sick. He's still very active. Why he can't say happy b-day is a mystery. Maybe because he's an only child, then grandchild. Maybe it doesn't matter in the long run and in these circumstances, but it did bother me. Stories number 38. I interrupt influencers in public places. I make it my absolute mission to be an asshole to entitled influencers. When in a public place, there is no reason to be influencing, especially in a way that demands space, takes away from the scenery and ambience of the place that the public are all supposed to be sharing together. I think it's imperative that we remind influencers that public space doesn't just belong to them, and the best way to do this is to interrupt their influencing altogether. Whenever I see an influencer on take 23 of their shitty TikTok dance with their camera person, leaving a 12-step distance between them and the person they're recording, expecting everyone to either stand back or walk around them, I whack out my camera stand, slam bang in the middle of the influencer and said camera, and enjoy my time ripping pictures of the scenery with the influencer cut out of the shot as they shout at me and ask me why I'm ruining their shot. It gives me pleasure annoying the shit out of these narcissists who do nothing but publicize themselves at the expense of everyone else, looking at themselves over and over again for that perfect shot in an attempt to become some sort of modern-age one-hit wonder. And no, this is not the same as just taking a picture with friends or a in-the-moment video for a memory. These are the godforsaken influencers that shoot and over again, not for any sort of memory, but purely for reasons of increasing their following and popularity. In case you haven't figured yet, they make me see the pleasure. Stories number 39. I'm 14 and can't tie my shoes, or float in water, or do math, or punctuate properly, or whistle, etc. I guess I'm just stupid, honestly. I've had people try to teach me how a million times. I literally can't. I get to the loop part, and it just makes no sense. The loops don't stay. I don't have 3 hands. I don't want any tutorials. I'm just going to live my life dumb, most likely. Oh, I also believed in Santa until I was 12. Okay, actually, if anyone has tips for any of these, please tell me. Stories number 40. In love with my married boss. I'm a young man, 29 years old, and I'm in love with my boss. I'm writing here to vent about this complicated situation in hope to find some relief. I work at a company, and my boss is a 40-year-old woman. She's married with 2 kids. We sit across of each other and we spend a lot of time together. It's been almost 2 years. Always found her kind of attractive, but these past 2 months she's been on my mind all day long at and off work. She's a very sweet person. She cares a lot about me, and to be honest, she's the best manager I've ever had, and we're close to each other. I know what real love is, so I seriously ruled out the passing crush scenario, and I don't just love the idea of her, I love her as a whole. I feel sick to my stomach for allowing myself to be in this situation and for developing strong feelings for a married woman. I'm a very honest person, not at all planning on acting on these feelings. I just needed to write it and share it here. It feels good to talk about it finally. It's a very painful feeling and an awful experience. What should I do to help myself walk through this without any damage? Have you ever experienced something similar? How did you manage? Stories number 41. I have an annoying customer that forced a friendship on me. I work in customer service in an office, and there is a lady that would come in all the time and would start randomly talking to me about her issues in life. I hear things like this all the time and am really nice, but over a period of time, she asked me for my number. Now, at the time, I was pregnant and about to go on maternity leave, and she wanted to buy my baby some clothes. I didn't need it at all, but I thought it was nice of her. So she would call me all of the time and give me advice and tips for my baby. She never had kids, but she used to be a nanny. She asked if she could care for my child when I returned to work, but I nicely declined. Then she asked me to send her pictures of my baby and said, wow, she looks so much like her dad, but she's never met him, nor have I ever shown a picture to her. Plus, we're not friends on social media. She would always talk about this guy that she was talking to for years. He's never taken her out on a date, and they have never had *X, and seemed very obsessed with him, and pops up at his job, but he ghosted her. So she began talking about all the things she's done for him and would ask me to go to places that he hangs out at, but I would decline and try to tell her to get over him. She's in her 50s. It says that she's still fertile and could have a baby. She admitted that when she was younger, guys would FCK and dit. She's celibate now and will only wait until she's married to have *X. Guys never approach her, plus she's around for 100 pounds. She is so attracted to incredibly good-looking men and thinks she's above dating a regular guy. Her mother and sister doesn't like her. She calls so much to a point that if I don't answer, she would pop up at my job and just talk about all of her problems. But recently I was transferred to another office and I have to return in a month. She's called me 4 times in 2 weeks and I have not responded. I like my job, but this makes me want to quit just to get away from her. How had any of you dealt with an annoying person friend?